Hi, how's it going, everybody? This is Vekktone. I haven't made a tutorial video in a good while now, but I wanted to share something I learned about the Launchpad Pro by Novation, specifically using it in FL Studio and how to program custom light shows in FL Studio and how to trigger those in performance mode. So there's not a lot of video or documentation on how to do this. But of course, the Novation Launchpad Pro is ideally used for Ableton Live. That's where it's configured and most intuitive to make things like this. But you can also do it in FL Studio. It's changed a little bit since the previous version. So let's figure out exactly how we can do this. We're going to start with just a basic project. I got nothing special here at all. We're just going to go into our MIDI settings, and we want to make sure the Launchpad Pro shows up, and we're looking for MIDI in to and MIDI out to. The ports should both be set to 195, and then you should have the Novation Launchpad Pro set as the controller type. From there, you want to actually load up a MIDI Out channel. This is what we're going to use to control the different aspects of the light we see in the Launchpad. We want to make sure it's on port 195 because that's the exact port that I set the Launchpad to. And then channel 1, we would want to just keep that on 1 and then map note color to MIDI channel. Now, there are three things we're actually going to be controlling with the light that we see on the Launchpad. We're going to be controlling the light itself, like whether it's on or off. We're going to be controlling the hue, which is essentially the color. And then we're going to be controlling the saturation of the light, which is how intense we're going to see it. So in order to do that, we're going to have three MIDI channels, and let's label them appropriately. So the first one we're going to call light. Then we're going to go ahead and clone that. So we keep all the same settings from the channel that we created, and now we're going to call this one hue. And then one more time clone. And you can call this saturation. So now we're ready to actually program lights on the Launchpad. Before we do that, let's just talk about one thing. If you look at the Launchpad on the screen, you'll notice that the outer lights are actually on right now. This is what the Launchpad looks like when you first load it into FL Studio. It detects that you're using FL Studio and actually pulls up some generic MIDI controls you can use to do things in your project. Now, since we're doing custom designs with the lights, we don't really care about that as much. But I do want to mention that basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be sending data to the Launchpad Pro through the piano roll. So that's why we've got these MIDI out channels, right? They're sending data to the Launchpad and telling it certain things. So if you go to the documentation on the Launchpad, I'll put this in the description. You scroll all the way down, you can see in the light show mode, they mention here, MIDI note G10/127 sets 3 different animation modes depending on the velocity. So when I hit note 127, depending on the velocity that I give it, I'm actually going to see 4 different things. Mode 1 is no animation, so we don't want that. This is just not going to show any of your custom lights. Mode 2 is going to show you animation blended with the performance mode controls. So you'll actually see when you go into performance mode, we'll see that lights kind of turn on and off based on what buttons trigger what. And then if I have a animation on one of those, I'll see that along with the controls. And we don't want that, right? We just want to see the animation that we create. So that's going to be mode 3, animation only. And then mode 4 is kind of a confusing one. If you hit mode 4 at 91 to 100% velocity, you're going to see a mouse tracking thing show up. So if I go into my piano roll and I see, I go to note 127, it's at the very top, and I hit it at max velocity, you'll see the Launchpad starts to look funny. It starts to track wherever I move my mouse. Now, this I think is just kind of a random feature they added in, and it is cool, but it like I said, it's confusing because if you're just playing notes on the piano roll, you might accidentally hit a note like note 127 at 100% velocity. You'll see this and wonder what's going on. The only way to get out of this is you have to change modes, and so you change modes by hitting note 127 at a lower velocity. So that one I just hit turned everything off. That's animation only. If I go a little bit lower, I can turn back on the custom generic controls as well. So we'll keep it at that for now. Now, if I start to move down the piano roll, you'll see that notes actually start to correspond to lights on the Launchpad. And you see these lights lighting up as I move down the piano roll while I'm getting lights. So this is how we actually start to program it. We're going to just start with one light. Let's just start with this one right here. And as I hold out the note, the light is going to actually turn on, right? We're controlling light, whether it's on or off. The way Launchpad does this is it uses the MIDI channels 1 through 3. So if you click this button here, it's like a green color, but you can actually click it and you'll see we have 16 different colors to choose from. These correspond to the 16 MIDI channels that send data to your MIDI device. So channel 1, which is the green default color, means that when you draw notes, you're drawing in color, in that color, and it's sending data to channel 1 on your MIDI controller. So basically when we control light, we want to be on channel 1. When we control hue, we want to be on channel 2. That's where the Launchpad is set to receive hue data. When we control saturation, we want to be drawing in color 3, aka MIDI channel 3. That is all about saturation. So for now, we're on the light channel rack in the light piano roll. So we're just talking about, is the light on or off? And for now, we're going to say, yeah, well, we want it on. So when I hit play, it's going to play my pattern. You see the light come on. I can also do things like make it blink by alternating the pattern. Now I have a blinking light. For now, I'm just going to hold it out so we can see some color changing. And then now we're going to go ahead and go into hue. So we go into hue's piano roll, and then we want to change to MIDI channel 2 because we're going to send hue data to MIDI channel 2 on the Launchpad. Now hue, like I said, is essentially going to be color. So we're going to kind of like vary the color, and you use velocity to do that. So when you're on the hue channel, you're going to just I'm going to show you guys what it looks like when I change the velocity rapidly. You'll see that the color is going to change. And then as far as the light goes for velocity, you actually want to keep your light velocity down to about 50, because the velocity on this one actually sends how much black or white color is added to your Launchpad's hue. So if I have this on 100%, I'm going to see a full white light no matter what. If I go down to about 0, then I see a nothing because all dark has been added to my color. So I'm going to keep it about 50 so we see actual color variation. And then finally, we're going to go into our saturation piano roll, select MIDI channel 3, and then on the same note, you've noticed I've been drawing on the same note, E5, because that's the note that corresponds to that button on the Launchpad. Now for saturation, I only have to set it once, and I would set the saturation at 100% because we want full intensity of our color. So I don't have to drag the note out. I don't have to break it up like I did for hue. As long as this note gets hit, it sets the saturation to 100% until I change it again. So now with this pattern, we should be able to see it, and we can see now on the Launchpad that we're getting color changes, right? So the big work is being done by hue and light, right? Hue is what's changing the color. Light is changing the pattern of what the light is actually doing on the Launchpad, where the light's going, or what buttons light up. So now let's go ahead and take this one step further. Let's try and light up multiple buttons, right? So I'm going to try and light up the whole row. So we go ahead and add our notes in for that row. We keep them at the same 50% velocity, and then we got to do the same thing for hue. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and copy the same notes with the same velocity pattern. So we should see a uniform color. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and go to the saturation, and we're going to add the saturation for every note. We want to set, because it's on a note by note basis. So you set the saturation. Now when we play our pattern with all our note data, bam, we get an entire row lit up. Okay, from there, we're ready to go into performance mode and link this to an actual clip, right? So if you want to change different colors, remember you go into hue. I don't have like a velocity chart of what colors map to what. You can kind of just experiment and figure out what you want. But there may be documentation, but like I said, it's kind of fuzzy. So now let's go ahead and actually add a little clip to that, right? We're just going to add like a very basic kick and clap. So when I play my pattern, now I'm getting sound mapped with my light show. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go into performance mode. So you go into your playlist, right, where you actually arrange your clips. You're going to hit performance mode. And then we're going to go into tools, macros, prepare for performance mode. And then it's asking if we want to tweak the project to say okay. And now you'll see the pattern has actually changed in what the arrangement is, right? So this whole area is our zone, right? We've got 16 pads, but we really only care about these 8 right now. Each of these 8 columns correspond to a column on the launch pad, right? So if I put my pattern in pad 1, you're going to see that my launch pad just lit up at the top left, right? So it's like it's just representing the 8x8 grid right here. So when I hit that button at the top left, I'm going to trigger this pattern. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn the trigger sync to off. And then I'm going to just make it a one shot so you can hear when I hit it right away. You'll also see that the play button has been lit up on that row. So this actually triggers the muting and unmuting, or the selection and deselection of a clip. So when I hit the button, you'll see in the playlist, it actually kind of lit up, and then when I hit the play button, it mutes it. I like to keep it muted initially so it doesn't play right when I play my song. So now you'll see when I hit play, I'm going to hear when I hit play and then I hit the button on the launch pad, you'll see my light and you'll see the pattern, or you'll hear the pattern. So let's try it. Right? And it's just a quick little 1 bar loop essentially, right? But you did see the row light up, and then you also, at the same time, you still see the controls of where I triggered the clip, right? I'll do it again. You can see both at the same time. Every time I click it, I see the animation. So in order to disable that, there's one more special MIDI note that I care about. So we go into our light rack again, and then once again, make sure you have MIDI channel 1 selected. And we're going to go up to, again, at the very top, not 127, but 126 actually is a toggle for the mapping of the performance mode. So when I hit this, you can see the lights go on and off, right? So for every pattern that I write in my Launchpad, I want to make sure that I have this as well, 126 dragged out for the entirety of the clip so we don't see these extra notes. So now, I accidentally hit note 127. There we go. So now when I play, when I go back into performance mode, I'm ready to play my clip. Now I'm going to hit play, and you can see all the other lights turn off. So from there, that's pretty much the essentials. You can basically not just, you can get an audio clip and splice it. You don't have to do patterns like kick, clap, and hat. You can do a full-on audio clip of a full song you produced, and then just kind of splice it up based on the beats, and then make your own patterns in the MIDI channels, and then just kind of tie them all together, link them up in the performance zone, and then you're good to go. So I'll include all the information in the description. I'll include this link right here. It has some documentation on performance mode and actually how that works, but really the big thing was the programming of the lights, which again is just 3 MIDI channels, and then you just got to make sure they're routed to the light, hue, and saturation. So if there's any questions, just leave them down in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you thought this was helpful. I struggled for like 3 years with this before I figured it out. So it just took me a while. So I hope I was able to kind of show you guys how to do this in FL Studio. Have a good day, everybody.